I finally hit 600 hours of dreaming Spanish. So I was just on, obviously, Dreaming Spanish. I was listening to Alche. It's a roller cross podcast, and I am finally at 600 hours. Dude, this is insane, literally insane. As soon as I seen it hit to 600, I'm like, you're now level 5. I'm like, oh my God, bro. I'm like 2 levels away. And the thing is, like, I knew I was going to hit it, but it's crazy because it feels like just yesterday. Literally, it feels like just yesterday. I remember showing my buddy this Cuban. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry using this thing called Dreaming Spanish. I'm at 150 hours. I can't believe it. I'm like genuinely shocked. Like, I basically started speedrunning it because I booked a trip to Latin America. And I'm like, oh shit. Based on that amount of hours I'm doing now, I was only doing 3 hours a day. I'm like, dude, when I get there, I'm only gonna have 600 hours. Like, I'm gonna just hit 600 hours at basically the end of August. So what I did was I basically doubled my input. So I was doing 6 hours a day for a while, but then I dropped it down to 5. And I've been doing 5 hours a day consistently. And like today, oh my gosh. So I'm gonna break this video into 2 parts, okay? Well, a couple parts. First off, I'm gonna basically show you guys what my Spanish level is. And then from there, I'm gonna basically tell you what I watched to get to 600 hours. And if I had to do 600 hours all over again, what would I do? And I'm really gonna help give you guys basically some tips and tricks for what I learned when it comes to getting through 150 to 600. Because I'm not gonna lie, getting an intermediate was the bitch. Getting an intermediate, especially early intermediate, is the hardest thing I've ever done, okay? But without further ado, I'm gonna start speaking some Spanish. Now is the time to turn on subtitles if, you don't know Spanish, and even still turn on subtitles because I'm sure I'm gonna make a lot of errors. So, hola a todos, me llamo es Eren, obviamente. Soy de Estados Unidos y actualmente vivo en Nueva York, específicamente Buffalo y, ¿qué? No sé. Obviamente voy a hacer muchos errores, pero voy a intentar para hablar sin errores, obviamente. Según Pablo, él dice, todavía, técnicamente, pienso que no debo hablar porque según el roadmap, dice que una persona como yo debería, debe esperar, to wait, esperar hasta 1000 horas para hablar, pero quiero dip my toe in the water un poquito. So, entonces, ¿qué hora? En el futuro voy a tener clases con Roads Across para practicar mi español, obviamente. Especialmente mis hablando, porque ahora puedo entender casi todo, pero todavía es muy difícil para mí para entender nativos, no, shows por nativos. No sé, parece que en este shows los actores y actrices hablan mucho más rápido y entonces en realidad, por ejemplo, cuando hablé con un nativo, un normal nativo, podría entender casi todo. Y es muy interesante para mí, es un poquito gracioso porque en el pasado, cuando yo hablé con un nativo, no puedo entender nada. Pero ahora el roadmap es correcto y ahora puedo entender, no sé, 90%. 90%. Yeah. I'm not going to say anything else in Spanish, but that kind of gives you an idea of where I'm at. For context, I have never spoken at all. I have not spoken within 600 hours. To give you a little context of my background, if you want to know more about my background, watch my 50-hour video. But for context, all I did was I took Spanish in high school I took Spanish in high school, and then I took Spanish in 7th grade and 8th grade because I had to. And honestly, I didn't really learn much. I didn't really learn a lot. I learned very basic things, like colors, maybe some objects, what is a stove, what is a refrigerator, and that was about it. And I've been trying to learn for a while. And then I did start using base slang earlier last year, so I was talking, but I tracked my hours. I only had a total of 6 hours in base slang classes. So for the exception of spending 6 hours in base slang classes, in the class I took in high school, I was essentially starting from zero. And as you can tell now, it's interesting because on the roadmap, it basically said it's 600 hours. At 600 hours, there's a lot of words I know, but it's hard for me to activate them because when I watch a lot of videos about people that basically start speaking is the word, but since you've never actually said it, it's hard for you to retrieve the word. But what I heard from someone is they basically say once you say the word once, you got it down. For example, I did not know the past tense for shit. And then I'm not even kidding you, one day I was reading a book. The roadmap technically said you shouldn't start reading until you get to 600 hours, but I read literally a page. And then I was reading, for example, when I read hablar, I'm to say I spoke, it's hablé, and then I was I literally learned the past tense instantly. Obviously there's different past tense because you have the perfect and you have the imperfect, and I'm sure there's more, but I know Spanish has a ton of tenses, the subjunctive. I don't know what that is, but I know I've heard people talk about it because Espanol con Juan, he always talks about it. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. My point is, I have literally had pretty much no experience in the past speaking Spanish, for the exception of base slang, and that was only 6 hours. And I'm telling you, I booked one base slang call with somebody, and basically I just learned, the entire 30 minutes, I was basically just trying to learn how to tell a story. And basically it was just I was telling a story about how all these people came in the store and they were speaking Spanish. And then basically I was talking about how I was very frustrated because on the roadmap, it literally says, I think when I was when you're at 300 to 600 hours, when you're in between there, it basically says that at this point, you'll be able to, actually, no, I don't remember. I think maybe it's 600. I don't know, but I know it basically says at some point, you'll be able to speak, but it will be difficult. And it can basically feel frustrating to do that. I'm actually about to pull up the roadmap real quick. So I'm really curious. Yeah, it says understanding a conversation. Never mind, this is a new level. But yeah, it says at this point, you'll at level 5, it says you'll start to feel you're missing important words. And that's how I feel now. For example, if I want to say words that are more complex, I don't even know, for example, I can't even think of something right now, but yeah. But for example, it basically was saying, I think at level 4, you could start speaking, but it'll be very difficult. And I could definitely attest to that. But if you're getting sidetracked, I want to record this video in one go, just so that way it's accurate and not manipulated. So I want you guys to see it's natural. Obviously, my Spanish isn't perfect, but what I'm saying is I pretty much have not spoken at all, literally since I started learning Spanish, and you just seen that. I think that's pretty good speaking, considering I've never spoke ever. So basically, let's start off with first things first. For my brothers and sisters that are about to get to 600 or are near there, you're at between 500 and 600 or 400, 600. What can I watch now? Well, first off, what did I watch to become? What I watched to become a 600-hour Spanish dreaming Spanish. So first thing first, I mainly spent the majority of my input in the beginning on the Dreaming Spanish platform, because this is what happens when you first get to intermediate. Watching the watching the videos is very difficult. The only YouTube channel I could actually understand when I had 150 to 300 hours and like it felt like pretty easy was Spanish Boost Gaming, and then also Cuéntame. Chill Spanish. Chill Spanish is, I think, hands down the best podcast. I think he's Peruvian. Yeah, because he's from Peru. So his Spanish is a little different. But for me, I'm not even kidding. At 50 hours, he was the one podcast I could listen to and understand 90% of everything. And the thing that's crazy is he pretty much only speaks in Spanish. And I like it more than Cuéntame. I like Marta a lot, but I like it more than Cuéntame just because he only makes one episode. He doesn't do, for example, what Marta does is she'll make one episode for learners, then another one for intermediate. So she'll do one with Spanish and English, then she'll do another one with just Spanish. I would rather just listen to just one go because it's just easier when you're listening to it. That's personally why I liked Chill Spanish more. But when I was in from 150 to 50, honestly, I was only listening to Cuéntame because when I tried listening to the Dreaming Spanish podcast, it was too difficult. So I would say from 150 to 300, the only podcast I was listening to was, for example, I would say with Cuéntame and then Chill Spanish. Those were the most comprehensible ones. And then from there, once I was at 300, between 500, I started listening to a lot of Espanol Colvin. Love that guy. He's crack. And then I was listening to what else? Espanol Colvin. I tried listening to How to Spanish, but I'm not going to lie, even now, I cannot understand what they're saying. I don't know what it is. Like, the thing is this. I can literally watch native content. I can watch native cartoons, understand, I would say probably 70, maybe 60 to 70% of it, you know, at this point now. But when I watch them, I think it's just because they use a lot of Mexican slang. For example, and also the thing is, I notice now my biggest thing is I need to listen to topics I've not heard of. Because what's very difficult for me is they don't talk about topics that are traditional. So for example, I noticed, like, I'm not even kidding you, when I had 150 hours, I could watch an advanced video from Pablo talking about language learning, and even though this video is super like advanced, I couldn't follow the entire thing because I've heard, like, what I mean saying is when you're listening to someone talk about language learning, the words that they're using are not very, very complex. So anyways, so yeah. I think that's the reason why I don't really know the topics well, and also they use a lot of slang, specifically Mexican slang, which is weird because my first 150 hours are literally only Mexican Spanish, but it's still difficult for me to follow. But anyways, I'll have to try it again because I actually, this is the thing, if I sit down in a chair and watch it, I can understand pretty much everything. But if I'm driving, I can't just drive and listen to How to Spanish and it's actually comprehensible. It's just not. I don't know, it's weird. But anyways, I actually tried How to Spanish when I first hit 300 hours, could not understand anything. Then I came back to 400, could not understand things. Came back at 500, it was more understandable. Came back at, 590, 580, it was way more doable. But yeah, I think How to Spanish is definitely a more difficult intermediate podcast. It's like upper intermediate. Okay, what else? So I would say for intermediate, and also El Vuelo with Franco. Hands down, I think he has the best podcast. Absolutely love it. The thing that I love about him is the topics he talks about are not boring. Most of these guys just talk about like random ass shit, in all honesty. Stuff like I don't even care about. But he talks about topics that are like pretty cool. He's like, he tells a story about how he's a professional gamer. Bro, that story was crazy. Stuff like that. So yeah, El Vuelo is probably my favorite podcast. And obviously, as I started to become more advanced, I then started to watch the Worlds Across podcast. I'll say I started watching advanced podcasts and advanced streaming Spanish content once I got to about 550 hours. And I'll say around probably 520, 530, I started watching like native YouTube videos. So now a lot of the YouTubers I'm watching I'm basically at the point now where I'm only getting my input from native TV shows and advanced content in YouTube and intermediate. So what I'm doing now is I'm telling you these intermediate podcasts become steroids when you get to advanced. Because the reason why they're so much better now is because you know so much more. So what I'm saying is they're more comprehensible. And Pablo literally says, the more comprehensible it is, the faster you learn. Now this is the problem, right? When you're beginning, most things you like are not going to be comprehensible. So you're just basically watching things you kind of don't understand. That's how it was for me anyway. I would say even intermediate videos now, to give you an idea, I literally could not understand the Dreaming Spanish podcast, like the Dreaming Spanish podcast, which is supposed to be intermediate, which if you look at their difficulty is level 60. I cannot really follow their podcast while doing something until I got to about 500 hours. That's when they actually became like, okay, I can sit back, relax, play Call of Duty, like Black Ops 3 Zombies while listening to this in the background. Which is a long time because it's an intermediate podcast. So most people are like, oh, I have 150 hours, I got this. Like, no, bro. It's upper level intermediate. So I would say, yeah. So that's pretty much what I listened to up until this point. As far as advanced now, what am I watching? I'm watching Avatar The Last Airbender. I tried Avatar The Last Airbender at 400 hours, way too difficult. I came back at 500 hours. I'm like, this is too hard. This is the thing. At 400, I could watch it if I had subtitles. But this is what I learned. If you can't watch something unless there's subtitles, it's too hard for you. That's just personally my opinion. That's what I found to be true. Which I'm telling you, if you follow that, I really do think it would help you. Don't force yourself to watch things if you need subtitles. If you need subtitles, it's too hard. Watch something easier. Trust me, it'll be more beneficial. So then from there, I came back at 500 hours, too hard. I came back at 580 hours, 590, probably like 3 days ago. I've literally only been watching Avatar now for input. And then I've been watching Luisito Comunican, I think is his name. I'm not sure how to say his last name. And who else? And there's a couple other YouTubers, but I don't really watch them as often. But my point is, I've been watching native content, and I can follow a percentage of it I'm very surprised of. Now, let's talk about Spanish in the field. So, for example, I work with a Puerto Rican guy, and the other guy, I think he's from Costa Rica. And anyways, when I hear them talk, right, it literally says on the roadmap, it says, listening to natives talk to each other is hard to understand. But you can understand when people talk directly to you. And I can tell you that it's true. Because, for example, when I listen to them, I don't know what it is, but it sounds like way faster. I think also what it is, too, is I don't have any experience with listening to Costa Rica dialogue, like dialects, or Puerto Rican dialects. So I think, for example, a lot of Puerto Ricans drop the D's. So, for example, instead of saying todo, they say, like, toa. I think that's literally what they say. Because listen to, like, Bad Bunny. I know it's a bad example, but I was watching an interview with Bad Bunny, and I noticed he dropped the D from toto. So, like, just stuff like that. So what I'm saying is like, also, if you don't understand natives talking, like, the thing is, we're extranjeros. I was thinking that, it's, we're foreigners in the language. Obviously, we're not fluent. We're not natives. So the thing is, like, we're not going to understand every dialect. And even a lot of Spanish speakers don't understand other dialects. Like, for example, I worked with this guy who was from Peru. And when I said Sisha, he was like, what the fuck is that? Like, he was lost. I'm like, Asia? He's like, oh, Asia. I'm like, yeah, Asisha. That's another problem I will say. When you're using Dreaming Spanish, you got to be careful, because this is my problem now. Since I've been learning a lot of different dialogues, when I think about things, I think about them in the dialect in which I learned it. So, for example, I can either say pollo or I can say pollo. I can either say sisha or I can say silla. I can either say cerveza or I can say cerveza. And it's hard because, for example, like, naturally, I kind of gravitate towards the, like, Spain accent for certain words, like corazon. I don't know if that's right. So please forgive me for Spain. But what I mean is, like, things like that. I know, like sisha for sure, or shendo. I think it's like leyendo. But they say sheyendo. Just little things like that. Like, the Argentinian accent and the Spain accent is killing me because most people don't talk like that. But yeah, so that's what I would say as far as, like, dialogues. I know a lot of people have suggested that just listen to one dialogue from the very beginning. But the problem is with that is it really does limit you, especially if you're using Dreaming Spanish, because listening to the same exact guide or same guides over for like 600 hours, guys, I'm telling you, it's just not realistic. Especially when you're doing it at the intensity which I did, because I'm like speedrunning it. Like, doing 3 to 5 hours a day, listening to the same exact person every day is just not realistic. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I'm trying to think if I got anything else. If I could start all over, I would have listened to pretty much, like I said, the podcast recommended. Anything else? I think that's pretty much everything. I told you what I was listening to. Now I'm basically going to hop on my computer and basically show you. I talked a little bit of Spanish. And now I'm basically going to hop on my computer and show you where I'm at now. All right, so as you can see here, we're on the Dreaming Spanish portal. This is where I'm at for the month. So yeah, holy moly, level 5. That looks so good, so good to see. So we're just look at this here. So it says basically what you can do. You can understand people well when they speak directly to you. They want to adapt their speech for you. Understanding a conversation between native speakers is still hard. I can say that's 100% true. It said you'll almost understand TV programs in the language because you understand so many words, but they're still hard enough to leave you frustrated or bored. I can tell you that for sure. Not all TV shows are equal. So, for example, there's this show about Pablo Escobar, but it's not Narcos. There's this show about Pablo Escobar that is only in Spanish, and it has all Colombian actors, and they talk. I haven't watched it since 550 hours. When I tried to watch it at 550 hours, dude, it was so fast. I could not understand anything without subtitles. So I'm like, you know what? I'll watch all of Avatar. I'll watch all of Adventure Time. Then I'll come back. It says conversations can be tiresome. I can agree with that, guys. So I started doing crosstalk. I started doing crosstalk at 500 hours. I've only done about 2 sessions. And I'm telling you, after I do crosstalk for like 30 minutes, my brain is working. It really is. I can tell you that. So it says conversation can be tiresome. And if you try to speak, you can feel a little bit like a child since it's hard to express abstract concepts and complex thoughts. It's very difficult. I can tell you right now, like the hardest thing is for me is conjugating is like damn near impossible. So for example, to say like I haven't had the opportunity to blank. Like to say I haven't or I didn't is difficult. I think it's like no he tenido, something like that. But anything that's like no like it's spelled like NOHE, then your verb. And anything like that, I don't even know what tense that is, but I've heard it so many times, but I don't know what it is. And particularly for me, like that right now is very complex. Another thing that's very confusing for me, even still, is like por and para. Another thing is, for example, like I said earlier, like for example, like estuve, like estoy versus like estuve. I mean, estaba versus estuve. That's like still a little confusing to me. You know, more like the connector words are what's difficult. So I can say it's 100% true. Since it's hard to explain complex thoughts, yep. Yeah, that's really what's hard for me. It's like I feel like I haven't really unlocked the past tense yet because it's hard for me to tell a story. It says you can understand most of the words used during a daily conversation, but you still can't use them yourself. That's so true. It's very difficult to explain things. If you try to speak the language, it will feel like you're missing most important words. Exactly. That's exactly how I feel now. However, you can often already speak with the correct intonation patterns of language without knowing why. I think when it comes to that, I think it depends. It definitely depends on what you're talking about. And then from there, it says what you need to do. Okay, obviously listen a lot. So listen to crosstalk. Listen to more advanced material for learners. Listen to audios, obviously in podcasts, blah blah blah. Try getting input about new topics. Yeah, easier TVs and cartoons. And obviously it says if you want to get a really good accent, you should hold off on speaking. But what I'll tell you is this. I've done a lot of digging on this, and for example, actually my what is it? My tutor, my crosstalk tutor, obviously he's fluent in Spanish, and he's actually kind of weird because he specializes basically in working with people that have done dreaming Spanish. It seems like I'll put his Hello Talk in the description below if you want to work with him. I mean, not his Hello Talk, but his website below. And his name is Santiago. He's from Colombia. But anyways, one of the things he was telling me, he's like, and even I watch podcasts. Like I was watching the Worlds Across podcast, and basically it's about the silent period. It's like it was about the dreaming Spanishers and how long should you go without speaking if you're going to basically learn Spanish or any language using comprehensible input, specifically Spanish. Most of the guys are like, it doesn't really matter. But then I believe Franco said, if I understand correctly, he's like, obviously do whatever you want, but he's like, based on what I've seen, it seems like people that wait until 600 hours to start speaking have the best results. Generally speaking, the thing is every person is different. For example, there's this one guy I was watching. I don't know his name. I know he's a black guy. He's a black guy. I think he just hit like 1,200 hours of learning Spanish. I know because when he hit 500 hours, he started watching Avatar. I've been kind of using him as like a track to basically see like, okay, this is where he is. Where am I? Kind of try to give me like a baseline. Anyways, I don't remember when I brought that up, but yeah, basically what I've heard from a lot of people is they basically said you want to start speaking as early as possible, but at a point where you already understand. Because what I'm saying is, this is my problem. If you start speaking at 150 hours, like, yeah, it's great, but if you try to talk to someone in the real field, I don't care if you can speak perfect. When they speak and they reply to you, you're not going to understand a single word they say. You know? And the thing is, like, unless you're okay with people talking to you like a baby, but what I found to be true is, like, if you cannot speak with complete fluidity, people don't want to talk to you. Like, they'll just talk to you in your native language. Like, for example, if they know English, even if their primary language is Spanish, this happened to me, they will literally just switch to English because their English is better than your Spanish. It's just easier. Like, the thing is, you got to remember, like, they are trying to be fast. They're trying to be fluid. Like, the difference between, like, what I'm saying is there's a time and a place to learn. When someone is, like, taking your order, they're trying to be fast. They're not trying to, like, help you learn your Spanish. They just want to take your order so they can, like, move on to the next table and get a better tip. And that's just the reality. So when people, like, switch, it's like, don't take it personal. So what I'm saying is, I can definitely see what they're saying. And I've heard from a lot of, like, people that did drink Spanish. They're like, yeah, I started speaking at 1,000 hours, and it was just as hard. It was just as hard to start speaking at 1,000 hours as it was at 600. The only difference is, I even heard this from Santiago, which is the tutor. And basically, he was saying is, he's like, yeah, what I've seen is people that wait until 1,000 hours to start speaking is they just have better vocabulary. But, like, overall, it's like, if you learn how to say a word correctly, you know, your accent's gonna be fine either way. And that's why I think you'll be fine as long as you work with a tutor. Obviously, do what you want. For a while, I was on the fence about, only, speaking at 1,000 hours. But I'm like, I'm ready, man. I'm ready to start talking. And then to be clear, I'm just not gonna be talking a lot. So I basically went from basically talking not at all to I'm going to be speaking, like, I don't know, maybe twice a week, maybe once a week. Because my main goal right now is, like it says here on the roadmap, is like, if you want to advance, you need to get more input. Because the thing is, you outputting, and like by you outputting, you're just going to get better at outputting. You're just going to get better at speaking, but you're not going to get better at, like, what I'm saying is your grammar is not going to increase by you becoming better and articulating the things that you learn. My cat is going crazy right now. This freaking toy. But anyways, and then the last thing it says this level, Barry, I don't feel like getting up. Anyways, the last thing it says this level is basically, is at this point, you're going to start to finish. Hold on. It's going to say, bro, it says your grammar is going to start to, like, connect. At this level, you'll mostly finish up the grammar in different sentence types. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens, right? We got 400 hours to go. I feel like at 1,000 hours, this challenge is really completed. So, yep. And then at this point, I'm just going to watch a level 50 video. There. Bro, you can play with the toy after, okay? I'm going to click on a real quick level 50 video just so I can give you an idea. The reason why I say level 50 is because when I tried to watch a level 50 video last time, obviously it was hard for me. So I'm just going to click on some random video so we can basically see, has Aaron improved? The answer is yes, I have. I don't understand these 5 American things. Let's see this.
Hoy desperté.
This is so slow. This is so slow. It's horrible. If this is your level, I say more power to you. But so basically, she said today I woke up
Confundida. Desperté
I woke up confused
con muchas preguntas
with many questions
sobre los Estados Unidos
about the United States
de América. Y es de lo que vamos a estar hablando el día de hoy.
And that's what we're going to talk about today.
De las cosas que no entiendo de Estados Unidos. Las cosas que para mí
Things I don't understand about the U.S.
no tienen
that for me don't make
sentido.
make
Y
sense.
estoy segura de que no soy la
This is the hold on, let me turn off these subtitles. These things are actually getting annoying.
única persona que se pregunta estas cosas. Entonces, vamos a hablar. La primera cosa que no entiendo
The first thing I don't understand
es por qué usan otro tipo de medidas.
why do we use a different form of measurement? You know what I mean? So this is what I'm saying, like level 50 videos, 100% comprehensible right now. So let's try to bump it up a little bit to like 60. This is another thing I was going to say. I know this video is very long, but I think it will actually benefit you. And that is basically the one thing I want to say is, here, let me turn off premium content. I don't want to show anything I'm not supposed to. I don't know how to, whatever. But anyways, let me find a level 60 video. I think they're all premium. Oh, what is tennis? Oh, here we go.
Como un pedacito de Latinoamérica perdido dentro de...
All right, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but I think you get the point. I think it's pretty obvious that my Spanish is vastly improved. I understand way more. So yeah, like it says 1,000 hours. Basically, you're going to start to have a bunch of connector words. So it's like, okay, what now, right? I'm just going to get more input. I'm going to start talking to a tutor basically once a week. Then from there, we'll go from there. So basically what I start doing is this. Start speaking to a tutor once a week. Once I get probably, I don't know, maybe 800 to 900 hours, I'm not sure. Definitely 1,000. Going all into speaking. And yeah. Sorry, this video was long. I hope you got some value from it. That's what I was going to say. I will tell you this. I think I cracked the code for how Dreaming Spanish works. If you look at this thing here, you'll see all the videos are sorted by difficulty. Okay? All the videos are sorted by difficulty. Of course, now it's not showing up. But like with these ratings, and what I realized is for every 100 hours, it became easy. Like what I realized is when I hit 100 hours, a video that was level 10 difficulty was 100% comprehensible. Well, not 100%, like 90% comprehensible. And now I'm at 600 hours. I can now watch a level 60 video with ease. But if I watch a level 70 video, it's kind of pushing me, right? I can understand a lot, but it's still a little harder. But right, for example, if I try to watch a level 90 video with a bunch of natives, then my comprehension is way lower than if I'm watching a level 60 video. So what I feel like I discovered is anytime, the ratio is basically 100 to 10. I'm not sure if that makes sense. So what I'm saying is if you're trying to watch a level 50 video, in order to truly understand it, I feel like you need to have 500 hours. If you're watching a level 70 video, you need to have 700 hours, right? And so on and so on. And also, I want to talk about this too. The switch from intermediate to advanced is a piece of cake. Hands down, the hardest thing in this is switching from beginner to intermediate. That is the hardest jump ever. So that's all I got for you. This video was very long, but I hope that I dropped some nuggets and I just didn't rant the entire time.